You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your Security Plus certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. External governance refers to the policies, standards, and oversight processes that apply beyond the boundaries of the organization itself. While internal governance focuses on aligning staff, technology, and processes, external governance ensures that third parties, partners, regulators, and larger ecosystems meet the same standards of accountability and security. In modern enterprises, very few organizations operate in isolation. They rely on cloud providers, SaaS platforms, contractors, and global supply chains. Each of these relationships introduces risk that must be governed with equal rigor. For learners, think of this like renting an apartment in a building. You may lock your own door, but your security also depends on the landlord's fire safety systems, the elevator company's maintenance, and the neighborhood's police force. External governance ensures that outside actors with influence on your systems are operating securely and responsibly. External governance matters because third-party risk has become one of the largest drivers of incidents and regulatory fines. Data sharing agreements, outsourced IT services, managed security providers, and cloud platforms all hold sensitive information or play critical roles in operations. If their security fails, your organization suffers the consequences, from breaches and downtime to compliance violations. Regulatory regimes such as GDPR and HIPAA make this explicit, holding organizations responsible for how vendors handle their data. In other words, you cannot outsource accountability even if you outsource operations. For learners, think of a food supply chain. If a supplier contaminates ingredients, the restaurant serving the dish is still held responsible by regulators and customers. Security governance in external relationships serves the same principle, ensuring you are not blindsided by risks introduced by others. Vendor risk assessment is the first layer of external governance. Before onboarding a new provider, organizations must evaluate their security posture. This typically begins with questionnaires asking about practices such as encryption, access controls, and patch management. Evidence review strengthens this process, requiring documents like SOC2 or ISO 27001 reports. In some cases, organizations perform on-site or remote assessments to observe practices directly. The purpose is not to drown vendors in paperwork but to ensure due diligence. Are they following basic security practices, and can they prove it? For learners, think of renting equipment. You wouldn't just ask the seller if it works. You'd ask for maintenance records and, if possible, test it yourself. Vendor risk assessments apply this same principle of trust but verify to external relationships. Contracts are the backbone of external governance because they codify security obligations. Key clauses should include service-level agreements, SLAs, defining uptime and incident response timelines, breach notification requirements specifying how quickly vendors must inform you of incidents, audit rights allowing you to review security practices periodically, and data handling rules clarifying how sensitive data is stored, transmitted, and destroyed. These contractual terms transform promises into enforceable obligations. Without them, vendors may deprioritize security when trade-offs arise. For learners, think of hiring movers. You don't just trust them with your belongings. You sign a contract specifying liability for damage, timelines for delivery, and insurance coverage. Security contracts function the same way, protecting your interests with enforceable commitments. Supply chain transparency has grown in importance, particularly for software and hardware. A software bill of materials, SBOM, allows customers to see what open-source and third-party components make up a product, providing visibility into vulnerabilities and dependencies. Firmware provenance ensures that devices are not tampered with or sourced from untrusted suppliers. Component traceability provides a way to confirm authenticity, reducing risks of counterfeit or compromised parts. These practices are not just best practices. They are becoming regulatory expectations in some industries. For learners, this is like nutrition labels on food. You don't just want the brand name, you want to know the ingredients and their sources. SBOMs and component traceability provide the same visibility for software and hardware security. Regulatory-facing obligations are another dimension of external governance. When vendors are involved in handling data, their failures can directly impact breach reporting timelines, cross-border data transfers, and overall compliance. For example, GDPR requires organizations to report breaches within 72 hours, regardless of whether the incident originated internally or from a processor. Cross-border data flows add complexity, since legal jurisdictions differ in privacy and security laws. External governance ensures that vendor practices are documented and aligned with regulatory regimes so the organization is not caught unprepared. For learners, think of exporting goods internationally. Customs paperwork must align with each country's laws. Failure by a logistics partner still leaves the exporter responsible. Vendors become extensions of your compliance program, not exceptions to it. Segmentation and access restrictions are essential to reduce the risk of third-party integration. Vendors should be given only the access required, whether through scoped API keys, limited VPN profiles, or time-bound credentials. Least privilege must apply to partners just as strictly as it does to internal staff. For example, a vendor providing support for a cloud service should not have blanket administrative access across all environments. They should be restricted to the systems they maintain. For learners, imagine giving a repair technician access to your home. You may unlock the living room and kitchen but keep bedrooms locked. Segmentation and access restriction ensure external parties cannot wander freely into sensitive areas, even if they are trusted to perform legitimate work. Governance doesn't stop at onboarding. Ongoing monitoring is required to ensure vendors remain compliant. This may include requiring telemetry sharing, periodic attestation submissions, or scheduled reassessments. Some organizations integrate vendor logs directly into their security monitoring platforms to gain visibility into shared systems. Others require quarterly or annual evidence renewals, such as updated penetration test results or SOC reports. Without continuous oversight, initial due diligence becomes stale and irrelevant. For learners, think of car maintenance. Passing inspection once doesn't guarantee long-term safety. Periodic checks ensure vehicles remain roadworthy. Vendors require the same ongoing attention to confirm security is not slipping over time. Insurance and indemnity clauses add another layer of external governance. Vendors may be required to carry cyber insurance to cover damages caused by their failures, and indemnity provisions may obligate them to compensate the customer for specific losses. While insurance cannot replace strong controls, it provides financial backstops that transfer part of the risk. For learners, think of this like construction projects. Contractors are required to carry liability insurance, not because it prevents accidents, but because it provides financial coverage if accidents occur. In security governance, insurance complements but never replaces oversight and preventative measures. Incident coordination with external parties is also critical. Organizations must ensure vendors are prepared to work within defined SLAs during breaches, sharing contact lists, escalation paths, and joint playbooks for likely scenarios. Without predefined coordination, incidents may be delayed or mishandled as organizations struggle to align under pressure. For example, if a managed detection provider discovers suspicious traffic, there must be a documented escalation channel to your security operations center. For learners, think of coordinating with fire departments. You don't want to exchange phone numbers during the blaze. You want them preloaded into response plans. Joint playbooks ensure external responders act as extensions of your own team. A practical starting exercise for learners is to create a vendor security checklist for onboarding a new cloud provider. The checklist should require attestations such as SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certifications, contractual clauses like breach notification within 48 hours, and data handling expectations specifying encryption and regional storage requirements. It should also define an initial reassessment schedule, such as a 6-month follow-up to verify compliance remains strong. By practicing this exercise, learners gain experience turning abstract governance principles into concrete checklists that support procurement and risk management. For learners, it is like preparing a house inspection list before renting. You don't just look at the paint, you check locks, fire alarms, and water pressure. The vendor checklist ensures you cover the essentials before committing. Third-party risk tiering is the foundation for prioritizing governance activities. Not every vendor carries the same weight. A catering company that serves office lunches poses little risk compared to a managed IT provider with privileged network access. Organizations should categorize vendors by criticality, sensitivity of data handled, and level of access granted. High-tier vendors, such as cloud platforms or payroll providers, require rigorous assessments, regular audits, and strict contractual controls. Medium-tier vendors may require lighter oversight, while low-tier vendors may only need baseline questionnaires. Tiering ensures resources are directed to the vendors who pose the most risk. For learners, think of hospital triage. Doctors treat life-threatening injuries first, while less urgent cases wait. Risk tiering applies the same principle to vendors, ensuring governance focus matches potential impact. Continuous monitoring of vendors ensures that governance does not stop at contract signing. Tools can collect telemetry, monitor vendor advisories, and alert organizations when vulnerabilities or breaches are disclosed. Some companies establish dedicated inboxes for vendor notifications or subscribe to automated feeds of advisories and disclosures. These channels ensure that if a vendor releases a patch or acknowledges a compromise, customers are informed quickly. Without continuous monitoring, organizations risk being blindsided by third-party failures. For learners, this is like subscribing to weather alerts. Even if the storm forms far away, timely warnings let you prepare. Vendor monitoring serves the same function, keeping customers informed of external risks in near real time. Remediation service level agreements, SLAs, and escalation pathways ensure accountability when vendors fail to meet obligations. Contracts should define timelines for addressing vulnerabilities, such as critical patches applied within 14 days. Escalation pathways clarify who is contacted when vendors miss deadlines, whether within vendor management teams or up to risk committees. These mechanisms turn vendor oversight from passive observation into active governance. For learners, think of warranty repairs on a car. Manufacturers promise fixes within a timeline, but escalation to supervisors or regulators may be necessary if commitments are missed. Vendor remediation SLAs keep third-party obligations enforceable rather than optional. Joint tabletop exercises with key suppliers validate that incident coordination plans work in practice. These exercises simulate realistic scenarios such as a supply chain ransomware attack or a cloud service outage, requiring both organizations to practice communication, escalation, and technical response. The goal is not to expose flaws publicly, but to identify coordination gaps before real crises occur. For learners, imagine fire drills involving both tenants and firefighters. Practicing together ensures everyone knows their roles and handoffs, reducing chaos when emergencies strike. In security, joint exercises prove that vendors can function as seamless extensions of internal teams. Data residency and legal restrictions add another layer of external governance complexity. Some jurisdictions mandate that personal data remain within national borders, while others restrict cross-border transfers. When outsourcing services or selecting cloud providers, organizations must confirm where data is stored, how it is replicated, and whether legal frameworks such as standard contractual clauses, SCCs, or privacy shield agreements apply. Failing to address data residency can result in regulatory violations even if security controls are strong. For learners, this is like transporting goods internationally. Customs laws dictate what can cross borders and under what conditions. Data follows the same principle. Where it resides and travels is a governance concern as much as how it is protected. Evidence and attestation frequency should be defined clearly in governance programs. High-risk vendors may need annual SOC 2 reports, quarterly compliance attestations, and monthly telemetry feeds. Medium-tier vendors may provide semi-annual updates, while low-tier vendors may only require evidence during onboarding or major changes. This cadence ensures oversight is proportional and continuous. Without defined frequency, evidence may be inconsistent, leaving long blind spots. For learners, think of medical checkups. High-risk patients require frequent visits, while healthier individuals can go longer between exams. Vendor evidence requirements should follow the same logic: frequent for high risk, lighter for low risk, but never absent altogether. Contracts must also include flow-down obligations for subcontractors. Vendors often rely on their own suppliers, and governance must extend through this chain. Clauses should require vendors to assess and monitor subcontractors with the same rigor expected of them, ensuring no weak links exist. Without flow-down obligations, a secure vendor may unknowingly rely on insecure partners, creating hidden vulnerabilities. For learners, think of construction projects. A general contractor hires subcontractors, but safety rules must apply equally across all crews. Security governance demands the same. Obligations flow down the supply chain to maintain consistent protection. Audit and inspection rights provide customers with the ability to validate vendor claims. These rights may include reviewing audit reports, conducting spot checks, or commissioning third-party assessments. Vendors may fear disruption, so governance agreements must balance transparency with practicality. Clear protocols for requesting audits, notice periods, and scope limitations help avoid friction while preserving assurance. For learners, think of health inspectors in restaurants. Inspections are not constant but occur periodically, validating safety without halting operations. Security audits of vendors serve the same role: independent validation that promises match reality. Metrics provide measurable insight into vendor security performance. Common metrics include time to patch for disclosed vulnerabilities, number of critical findings identified in assessments, and currency of attestations. Dashboards tracking these metrics help executives see whether vendors are improving, stagnating, or declining. Metrics also enable benchmarking across vendors, helping prioritize which relationships need remediation. For learners, think of grading systems. Students are assessed not only on attendance but on test scores and improvement over time. Vendors need the same tracking, with metrics ensuring progress is visible and actionable. Procurement gating ensures that higher-risk vendors cannot be engaged without security approval. Governance frameworks should require security reviews before contracts are signed, with gates escalating by vendor tier. For example, critical vendors may require a full assessment and legal approval before procurement proceeds, while low-risk vendors may only require a questionnaire. Procurement gating prevents business units from bypassing security in the rush to onboard vendors. For learners, this is like a safety inspection before buying a used car. Without it, hidden flaws may only appear after the purchase. Gating ensures oversight before commitments are made, reducing downstream risk. Continuous improvement keeps vendor governance dynamic. Vendor scorecards summarize compliance, remediation progress, and responsiveness, providing easy-to-read overviews for leadership. Remediation tracking ensures findings are not forgotten, while risk committees can escalate or replace vendors who fail to improve. In extreme cases, governance must authorize transitioning to alternative providers if risk cannot be managed. For learners, think of professional sports teams. Players are evaluated continuously, coached for improvement, and sometimes replaced if performance fails to meet expectations. Vendors must be treated with the same accountability, ensuring they remain reliable partners in maintaining security. Ultimately, external governance must be systematic, not ad hoc. Vendors should be categorized into tiers, required to provide evidence and attestations, bound by contractual clauses, and monitored continuously. Procurement, incident response, and audits must all feed into a single governance framework that ensures consistency across relationships. Without systematization, oversight is uneven, leaving gaps where the riskiest vendors may escape scrutiny. For learners, the takeaway is clear. External governance is about building guardrails across the entire ecosystem, ensuring your organization is never undermined by the weak security of others. Tier vendors require attestations, codify rights in contracts, and measure performance relentlessly to achieve true governance maturity. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.